So today the episode is all about getting your garden ready for spring planting. And the big thing that I want to cover today is your garden soil. So one of the first things that you should do in the spring, ideally you should do a soil sample. And they should be done in late summer, early fall. But if you haven't been able to get one done, or whatever the reason, maybe you haven't gotten around to it, whatever it may be, you can always have one done in the spring. The results just may not be quite as accurate as you would like, especially when it comes to the nitrogen, how much nitrogen is in your soil, but you still should get one done. And around here in my area, you would go to the West Virginia WVU Extension Office, and again, here's what the forms look like. And I'm leaving some links below to the website for you folks that live in West Virginia that want to get a soil sample done. You can do that. There's even a video where they show you how to go about getting one done. And for in-state residents, the soil samples are free. So it's definitely a resource to take advantage of. And you want to get that done before you start planting. And so that way now you can add any amendments once you get the results back, whether it's organic matter, maybe you need to add some blood meal, bone meal for nitrogen and phosphorus, maybe some green sand for potassium, whatever it may be, but you'll be able to know what's going on with your soil. Because the old adage rings true, you don't feed the plant, you feed the soil. And you take care of your soil, and it'll take care of you. And so, moving on. When it comes to your soil, one of the things, the most important thing, if you're not able to get one done, maybe it's you just don't feel like it, whatever it may be. It's just one more chore that you have to do, and you don't want to do it. The one thing you should always do is add organic matter back to your soil. And when I say organic matter, I mean compost. Now, there are several different types rather, of compost. You've got your bag, store-bought compost that you can go to any big box store and get. You've got composted animal manure. You've got mushroom compost, there's municipal compost, and the best kind, if you can, if your garden's not real big, it may not be that big of a challenge, is your homemade compost that you make from vegetable scraps from your kitchen and any of your garden scraps. That's going to be your best route. If your household and your garden generates enough material to supply you with adequate amounts of compost. However, I've got a large garden, so I can't make enough compost for myself. And being in West Virginia, everything's up on hillside, so I can't just have a load of composted horse manure dropped off and then just haul it to the garden. It's my garden beds, which you'll see later in the season, are terraced. So, and it's a challenge to get anything up there. So I try to get stuff that's already bagged. I try to make as much as I can myself, and whatever I can't make myself, I try to supplement with bag compost. Now, with that in mind, if you have to get compost from maybe a neighbor who has farm animals, or you go to a box store, whatever it may be, there's one thing that's extremely important to check for before you actually plant anything, and that is whether or not your compost has been contaminated with herbicides. A few years ago, I would never have imagined that was a thing, and I remember it was about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 4. I was at a box store, and I was going up and down the aisles looking at compost, and there was one that had composted, I'm thinking it was cow manure in it. And anyways, and it had an organic label on it, and I'm like, wow, what is that all about? I mean, my gosh, they're going overboard on this organic stuff. Now they're even labeling animal poo as organic. But then that's before my garden disaster with contaminated compost. So you may be wondering, well, what's that all about? Okay, so there are a lot of different herbicides out there that farmers use, whether it's to grow corn, wheat, whatever crops it may be, that they spray all over their plants. What they're now starting to see, and it is extremely prevalent, extremely prevalent, is that they'll spray livestock feed with an herbicide, and it gets fed to the horse, gets fed to the cow, and it may be safe for them to consume. It's been several months. Who knows? It's safe for them to consume, but it doesn't break down in their digestive system. So then what happens? It's hasn't broken down yet, and it comes out as poo, and it gets composted. Well, some of these herbicides really take years to break down naturally, years literally. And so then you've got this herbicide in this animal poo, and it's still there. So it goes through the composting process, which can take months, maybe a year. It just depends on whether or not it's commercial or not, how they go about doing things. And it gets bagged up and shipped to you. And you put it in your garden beds. You put it, supplement your plants, whether you're doing whatever it may be, but you're putting this all in your garden for your plants. And I found out the hard way that tomato plants in particular, and beans and peas are extremely sensitive to herbicides. So you might be able to plant some broccoli perhaps in some contaminated compost, not have any problems. Maybe some squash, not any problems. But then you put in your tomatoes, and all of a sudden you start noticing distorted leaves, stunted growth, and you'll know it if it happens to you, because it's not like your typical tomato diseases where they wilt and they get spotted and discolored. They're like completely distorted. So it was so bad that there was not all of my tomatoes got hit with it. I guess just the way that I had spread out the compost throughout the bed, I guess this one end of the bed perhaps got a little bit more of this contaminated compost than the other portion did. But I asked my neighbor if they had been out spraying some herbicide and then it drifted over, because I couldn't figure it out. My neighboring bed had squash or zucchini in it, no problems. Excuse me. But it was just these about 3 tomatoes on the end plants that I had some issues with. Another source of contamination is, and I found this out the hard way too, is some of your straw and your hay that you get from the box stores, or maybe your neighbor, a farmer down the road, whatever it may be. They've sprayed it on their plants, on their hay. And again, some of these herbicides take a long time, years to break down. So when you put it on your garden bed or throughout your garden to help suppress the weeds, as it slowly breaks down, it's got that herbicide in it, and it goes right into the soil and to your tomato plants. But one thing that you can do to easily check to see if you've got contaminated compost or soil, maybe it's from the straw, hay, whatever it may be, is with beans. As I had said a little while ago, beans or any of your legumes are highly sensitive to residuals, herbicides in the soil. So what you can do, because here you've got a tomato plant that you may have babied from seed for 6-8 weeks, and that's a lot of effort put in there and time invested. What you can do is you can take your compost or even your soil, if you think maybe your soil is contaminated, and you plant a bean seed. And a bean seed should germinate within a week, typically. Some of it's going to depend on soil temperature, moisture, stuff like that. If when it sprouts, if it's distorted, or there's growing issues, you'll know within 2 to 3 weeks after you put that bean seed in the soil whether or not you've got contaminated soil. So I really, really recommend that before you put anything in your beds. Even if it's, guy down the road, he's got horses. He may not realize that maybe some of the hay that he's getting for his animals have been sprayed with some of this stuff. So, and that's unfortunate because we're seeing this a lot in the gardening community, that it just wiping out basically tomato plants and really sensitive plants for years. I'm going to leave a link down below. There's a guy that I watch, Danny from Deep South Homestead. I watch his YouTube channel, and there's one episode that's in the description where he talks about he had gotten some of his compost from one of his neighbors, and I believe that's the situation, and it was contaminated with herbicide, and he ended up having to take all the soil out of his raised beds in his greenhouse. So it's some serious stuff. So know where, if you've got to import any of this stuff, know where it comes from. I mean, if the farmer sprayed anything on his crops, if the cattle or the horse, if any of their feed has any herbicides on it. And your best bet is to always just do a quick 2-week test, with 2 to 3 week test with a bean. I mean, worst case scenario, if you don't have any, maybe you don't like to plant beans, whatever it may be, grab a pinto bean. You can pick them up from the store, and it'll tell you. Is the reason why you want to actually add the compost to your soil is that it adds all the goodness, all the soil life that you rely on and your plants rely on to really grow and develop these foods for you. You've got bacteria, you've got fungi. They feed on organic matter, and as they feed, that organic matter breaks down, so it depletes very quickly. So you want to add back to the soil. And when you do that, you're actually adding back all the nutrients, your nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and maybe some trace minerals as well. You're adding back what that plant and that fruit is taken out of the soil. Furthermore, it helps with just the consistency and texture of your soil. If you have clay soil, it helps to break that up over time. If you have sandy soil, it drains really quickly. You can't water it enough almost, and that it'll help to really hold on to the moisture. So that's one of the best things that you can do for your soil is to add compost. I've even gone and in the fall and winter time, I'll go and just my old compost that hasn't broken down. Maybe I still got some eggshells. Maybe I still have some carrot tops that haven't, it's not completely composted yet. I just throw it on top of my beds, and then I take bag leaves and I layer it on top of my beds to kind of put my beds to sleep, because I no longer use straw or hay in my beds because of the contamination. And if you do mulch your beds, and I have to here because it gets really hot in the summertime here, and it helps with to retain the moisture. I use that all year round. The leaves, bagged leaves that I rake up or the neighbors rake up. to help with mulch as opposed to straw or hay. So that's all I have for you guys. I hope you learned something. Check your compost. If you don't make it yourself, just do the quick 2-week test. If not, you're going to be hurting for several years down the road, and it's not fun. It's not fun. But hopefully this taught you something. You learned something new, and you won't make the same mistakes that I did. And a lot of people have to. See ya. Bye, guys.